Tonight, we'll take a slow, peculiar stroll through the most bizarre, unbelievable, yet entirely real festivals that have taken place throughout history. So fluff your pillow, pull the blanket close, and let's wander into some of humanity's strangest celebrations. We begin in the sun-soaked streets of ancient Rome. You've probably heard of Saturnalia, the famous Roman festival of chaos, but few people today realize just how absurd it really was. Held every December, Saturnalia was a multi-day holiday dedicated to the god Saturn, and it turned Roman society completely upside down. During Saturnalia, enslaved people were temporarily freed from their duties and even allowed to insult their masters or make them serve dinner instead. Shops were closed, schools were shut down, and the streets echoed with loud singing, raucous laughter, and endless gambling. Everyone wore colorful, outlandish clothes and silly hats. There was even a king of misrule, a mock ruler chosen from the poorest of the poor, whose job was to cause as much foolishness and chaos as possible. People threw dice in the streets. Strangers gave each other cheap gag gifts, like fake fruits or joke coins. And yes, it often ended in drunken brawls and food fights. Many historians believe Saturnalia's chaotic energy eventually inspired aspects of Christmas celebrations in Europe, but with fewer drunken riots, hopefully. Now, we drift eastward to India. Here we find one of the strangest and most visually striking festivals in human history, the Festival of Piercing. Known as Thaipusam, it's still celebrated today by Tamil communities around the world. Participants in this festival pierce their bodies with metal hooks, skewers, and spears, sometimes through their cheeks, tongues, or even their backs. Some carry massive, elaborately decorated structures called kavadis, attached to their bodies with sharp spikes that dig into their skin. And yet, despite the extreme appearance, many describe the experience as almost painless, thanks to deep spiritual trances and chanting. It's a powerful example of faith and endurance, but certainly one of the most visually intense festivals on Earth. Now, let's shift to something a bit more ridiculous. Welcome to the town of Buñol, Spain, where every summer, tens of thousands of people gather for the world's largest food fight. This is La Tomatina, a tomato-throwing festival like no other. For exactly 1 hour, the entire town square erupts into chaos as people hurl overripe tomatoes at one another, covering every building, street, and person in bright red pulp. By the end, the streets run with rivers of tomato juice, and everyone is drenched from head to toe. No one is entirely sure how La Tomatina started, but many believe it began as a spontaneous street fight among local youth back in the 1940s. Regardless of its origins, the town now imports around 150,000 tomatoes every year, specifically for the event. Cleanup crews work through the night to restore the town to its normal state. And remarkably, the acids in the tomatoes leave the streets sparkling clean. From here, we drift north to the icy villages of Scotland. In the town of Stonehaven, New Year's Eve doesn't mean fireworks or champagne. Instead, locals celebrate with an ancient tradition known as the Fireball Festival. As midnight approaches, a procession of townspeople swing massive balls of fire, yes, actual flaming metal cages filled with burning material, above their heads while marching through the streets. The flames dance wildly against the dark winter sky, illuminating the faces of onlookers who gather to watch this fiery parade. The tradition is believed to date back to the Vikings, who likely used fire rituals to ward off evil spirits and ensure a prosperous year. Today, it remains a mesmerizing blend of danger, beauty, and ancient symbolism. And with that, we bring our first chapter of Strange Festivals to a close. But there are many more bizarre celebrations waiting just beyond the horizon. We'll explore even stranger rituals, food fights, and peculiar customs in the next part of our sleepy journey. So take a deep breath. Let the oddness of these festivals swirl gently through your thoughts. Let's continue our sleepy walk through history's strangest festivals. Our next stop takes us to the quiet hills of Gloucestershire, England, where once a year people gather for one of the most chaotic, bone-rattling contests imaginable. It's called the Cheese Rolling Festival. On the steep slopes of Cooper's Hill, locals and visitors alike chase a large wheel of cheese, yes, cheese, down a dangerously steep hill. The rules are simple. A wheel of double Gloucester cheese is rolled from the top, and participants race down after it, scrambling, tumbling, and often flying through the air as they try to catch it. Of course, the cheese usually reaches the bottom long before any runner. But that hardly matters. For centuries, the prize wasn't just the cheese itself, but also the pride of surviving the perilous dash. Broken bones, sprains, and concussions are frequent souvenirs from this festival. Its origins are hazy, possibly tied to ancient fertility rites or harvest celebrations. Even today, despite official attempts to ban or control it, the cheese rolling continues, wild, dangerous, and delightfully absurd. Now, from the hills of England, we wander toward the tropics. In Thailand, you'll find a festival that's both playful and deeply refreshing. It's called Songkran, the Thai New Year celebration. But most people simply know it as the world's largest water fight. Each April, as the hottest season peaks, entire towns turn into arenas of splashing and laughter. Locals and tourists alike roam the streets armed with water guns, buckets, and hoses, joyfully drenching everyone they encounter. Originally, this water ritual symbolized cleansing, washing away bad luck, and welcoming the new year with blessings. Today, it's both a spiritual tradition and a joyous citywide soaking. Some participants also sprinkle perfumed water on elders' hands as a sign of respect,
Yet most are content to chase each other with ice-cold buckets of water, laughing as they dodge streams from passing pickup trucks loaded with water barrels. It's festive, playful, and, during the heat of April, undeniably practical. Now, we move west again, to the Netherlands, where we discover a festival rooted in bizarre matchmaking. It's called Vliegeren met kinderen, which translates to flying kites with children. This centuries-old tradition took place in some rural Dutch villages where eligible young women would fly decorative kites to attract suitors. But here's the odd twist. Potential suitors wouldn't simply admire the kites from afar. Instead, they were expected to climb up trees, roofs, or even precarious towers to try and grab a piece of fabric from the highest flying kite. The higher the suitor climbed, the more impressive his bravery and, supposedly, his marriage prospects. It was equal parts courtship ritual and dangerous competition. Thankfully, the tradition faded over time, replaced by less risky methods of flirting. Still, old woodcuts and paintings from the 1700s show daring young men scrambling up rooftops as crowds watched below, cheering them on. Now, we drift south to Italy, to a festival famous for its spectacular mess. Welcome to the Battle of the Oranges in Ivrea. Each February, the quiet streets of this northern Italian town transform into a battlefield. Participants break into teams, don bright red hats and medieval costumes, and then begin hurling oranges at each other with astonishing force. The origins of the festival are murky, but most locals trace it to a rebellion in the Middle Ages when townspeople supposedly overthrew a tyrannical ruler. The oranges represent stones and weapons from that long-ago uprising. Today, the festival draws thousands of participants and even more spectators who wisely watch from behind protective nets. By the end, the streets are thick with smashed oranges, and sweet citrus scent fills the air. It's a festival that blends history, community pride, and pure, juicy chaos. Now, take a deep breath. Let these strange celebrations drift softly through your mind. From rolling cheese and flying kites to water fights and citrus battles, the world has always found unusual ways to celebrate. But don't worry, there are still more strange festivals ahead.
Let's continue our quiet, curious stroll through the strangest festivals in human history. Our next stop takes us high into the misty Andes Mountains of Peru. Here, in the remote village of Santo Tomas, there is a New Year's tradition known as Tekenekui, a name that translates to "when the blood is boiling." It's a festival of fighting. Each December 25th, neighbors gather in the town square, not for caroling or gift-giving, but for organized fistfights. The reason? To settle lingering grudges before the new year begins. Anyone with a grievance, whether personal, financial, or romantic, can publicly challenge another person to a fight. Men, women, and even children participate, all under the watchful eyes of referees. Spectators cheer, music plays, and fighters dress in colorful traditional costumes, often with elaborate masks. After the dust settles, both winners and losers are expected to shake hands. forgiveness granted, no matter the outcome. It's a festival built on the idea that it's better to fight once and then move forward in peace. Unusual? Absolutely. But it's been a key tradition in this region for centuries. Now we drift north, across the sea, toward Denmark. Here, we find a curious birthday tradition unlike any other. When someone turns 25 and remains unmarried, their friends and family gather to pelt them with cinnamon. Yes, cinnamon. The Cinnamon Challenge, as it's sometimes nicknamed, involves tying the unlucky birthday person to a post or chair and then showering them with copious amounts of cinnamon powder. Clouds of spice fill the air as the celebration grows louder. The origins of this strange custom are unclear, but many believe it dates back to old trade routes, when unmarried spice sellers were jokingly teased for being too busy traveling to settle down. The tradition is so beloved that some towns even escalated. If the person reaches 30 without marrying, the cinnamon gets swapped out for pepper, an even harsher punishment. It's all done in good fun, of course, but it's definitely one of history's spiciest birthday celebrations. Now, let's sail south again, toward Greece. Here, we arrive at the island of Chios, where Easter is celebrated with one of the world's most explosive traditions, Roukatopolemos, or Rocket War. As midnight approaches, two rival churches, perched on hillsides overlooking the town, begin launching thousands of homemade fireworks at each other. The goal? To hit the opposing church's bell tower. The skies erupt with streaks of light, loud booms, and glowing embers. Entire neighborhoods participate, with locals building wooden barricades to protect their homes. This fiery tradition dates back to the Ottoman era, and though it's been banned several times throughout history, it always finds a way to return. It's dangerous, chaotic, and utterly breathtaking to witness. Now, let's gently step away from the rockets and return to something a bit more peculiar but far less explosive. In Japan's snowy Niigata Prefecture, a festival called Naki-Sumo takes place every spring. Its name means Crying Baby Festival. In this ancient ritual, sumo wrestlers hold babies in their arms and try to make them cry. The louder and longer the baby cries, the better. Why? The tradition is rooted in the belief that crying babies bring good health and ward off evil spirits. Parents willingly offer up their infants, and referees dressed in colorful costumes oversee the contest, encouraging the sumo wrestlers to bounce, sway, or even gently make funny faces at the babies, just enough to draw out those big, dramatic tears. Though it might sound odd, the event is filled with laughter, warmth, and communal blessings. And the babies? They're often gifted toys and treats after their emotional performances. Now, close your eyes for a moment. Picture it. Brawling townsfolk in Peru, cinnamon-dusted Danes, dueling fireworks in Greece, and sumo-wrestled babies in Japan. History truly has no shortage of strange and unforgettable festivals. but we've only just begun to explore them. In the next part, we'll uncover even more curious celebrations, some cheerful, others downright eerie. Take a deep breath. Let these odd traditions swirl gently in your dreams.
We now drift deeper into history's most peculiar festivals. Next, we arrive in Hungary, in a quiet village known as Mohács. Here, every February, locals celebrate a festival called Buszó Járás, the Buszó Walk. Its origins date back to medieval times, with a legend that during an Ottoman invasion, the townspeople disguised themselves as terrifying monsters to scare away invaders. Today, the festival involves hundreds of people dressing in monstrous wooden masks, thick woolly cloaks, and wielding noisy cowbells, horns, and sticks. For several days, the streets fill with these strange horned creatures who dance wildly, stomp loudly, and play tricks on villagers and tourists alike. Massive bonfires are lit, symbolizing the burning away of winter's darkness. The air fills with the scent of roasted meats, mulled wine, and crackling fires. Though eerie in appearance, the festival is filled with laughter, warmth, and celebration, a ritual of scaring away not only evil spirits, but also the cold of winter itself. Now, we sail west again, to Spain. In the small town of Castrillo de Murcia, a centuries-old festival known as El Colacho takes place. Its nickname? The Baby Jumping Festival. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. During this annual ritual, men dressed as devils sprint down the streets, leaping over rows of babies laid carefully on mattresses. This tradition, dating back to the 1600s, symbolizes driving away evil spirits and granting good health to the infants. The babies are harmless, of course. Local priests and families carefully oversee the event to ensure safety. The devil-costumed jumpers carry whips and castanets, adding to the dramatic flair. It's one of the world's most visually surreal festivals, and somehow it has endured for centuries. Now, from the streets of Spain, we journey to the dense forests of Papua New Guinea. Here, in the remote village of Goroka, tribes gather every year for the Goroka Show, an astonishing spectacle of tribal pride and ancient customs. Dozens of tribes, each with their own language and traditions, assemble for a massive celebration of music, dance, and color. What makes this festival so unusual is the elaborate body art. Participants spend days painting themselves in vivid reds, yellows, and blacks, crafting enormous feathered headdresses from birds of paradise, and adorning themselves with shells, tusks, and bones. Warriors stomp in rhythmic unison, chanting ancient songs passed down through generations. Though once a display of fierce competition, today it's a celebration of unity, welcoming visitors from around the world to witness one of Earth's most breathtaking cultural festivals. Now, we float north to Finland, where we find a much colder but no less strange celebration. Each year, the small town of Sonkajärvi hosts the wife-carrying World Championships. As the name suggests, men race through an obstacle course while carrying their wives or female partners on their backs. The origins of the festival are rooted in local folklore, allegedly inspired by a 19th century robber who would steal women from nearby villages. Today, it's all in good fun, with strict safety rules. Competitors dash through sand pits, dodge hurdles, and wade through waist-deep water, all while trying not to drop their partners. The prize? The winner receives the wife's weight in beer. Yes, beer. It's playful, odd, and thoroughly Finnish. Now, take a deep breath. Picture these wild scenes, masked monsters roaming snowy streets, devils leaping over babies, tribes dancing in feathers and paint, and couples tumbling through obstacle courses. Human history is filled with festivals that defy logic, but somehow they bring people together. And still, there are even stranger festivals waiting to be discovered. In our next chapter, we'll explore more curious rituals, some whimsical, others haunting. But for now, rest easy. Let these strange stories settle softly in your thoughts. And when you're ready,
Our journey into the world's strangest festivals drifts onward. This time, we arrive in Mexico, where ancient traditions and modern celebrations blend together beautifully. Here, we find the Day of the Dead, known locally as Dia de los Muertos. Though now widely known around the world, this festival remains one of history's most remarkable and visually striking celebrations of life and death. For several days, families gather to honor their ancestors with vibrant altars called ofrendas, decorated with marigold flowers, candles, sugar skulls, and the favorite foods of departed loved ones. People paint their faces like skeletons, dressed in vivid costumes, and parade through the streets in joyful processions filled with music and dancing. Unlike many festivals that mourn the dead, Dia de los Muertos is festive and bright, celebrating the continuity of life and inviting the spirits of the deceased to join in the celebration. Feasting, singing, and laughter fill the air as the boundary between the living and the dead seems to dissolve, if only for a night. Now we drift east to China, where an ancient and rather odd-sounding festival still thrives. It's called the Hairy Crab Festival, held every autumn along the Yangcheng Lake near Shanghai. The celebration revolves entirely around the region's famed delicacy, hairy crabs. These small freshwater crabs are prized for their sweet meat and rich orange roe, and during the harvest season, they become the center of a culinary frenzy. Families gather to feast on steamed crabs, ginger tea, and rice wine, savoring every delicate bite. Vendors fill the streets selling towers of crabs tied neatly with straw, while chefs compete to create the most elaborate crab dishes. And yes, there are even contests to crown the biggest and heaviest crabs of the year. While it may sound peculiar, this festival has been a beloved tradition for over 2,000 years. Now we gently float west again, toward Switzerland. Here, high in the alpine village of Appenzell, locals celebrate a springtime festival called Silvesterklausen. It's one of Europe's most haunting and mysterious festivals. Each January, men called Silvesterklause dress in bizarre, intricate costumes, some as beautiful figures wearing elaborate bells and embroidered masks, others as terrifying, monstrous beings draped in fur and wooden masks.
The Klause roam from house to house, singing strange, droning songs meant to drive away evil spirits and welcome good fortune for the new year. As they walk, the heavy bells strapped to their bodies clang loudly, echoing through the snowy valleys. The entire scene feels like something from an ancient folk tale, part dream, part nightmare, but deeply rooted in Swiss tradition. Now we drift south to Bolivia, where the Tinku Festival offers yet another example of ritualized combat. In the high-altitude town of Macha, each May, communities gather for this ancient festival, which literally means meeting in the Quechua language. But this isn't a peaceful meeting. Participants, often from rival villages, engage in ritual fistfights, sometimes for hours. The goal is not just to settle grudges, but also to honor Pachamama, the Earth Mother Goddess. It's believed that spilling blood upon the earth will ensure a bountiful harvest. Though violent in appearance, the fights follow specific customs and are overseen by respected elders. Once the battles end, the communities join together in dancing, feasting, and singing that lasts long into the night. It's a festival of both conflict and unity, tied to ancient agricultural beliefs. Now, take another deep breath. Let these images drift softly through your mind. Painted faces honoring the dead in Mexico. Crab feasts by the lakes of China. Masked spirits roaming snowy Swiss villages. And ritual fistfights beneath the Bolivian sun. These festivals may seem strange, but each one carries centuries of meaning woven into the cultures that celebrate them. But don't worry, there's still one last chapter in our sleepy exploration of history's most bizarre festivals. Soon, we'll visit the final and perhaps strangest celebrations yet. For now, rest easy. Let your mind wander among the festivals of the world. And when you're ready, simply whisper, "Continue."
At last, we arrive in the final chapter in our tour of the world's strangest festivals. And we begin in the Philippines. Here, during Holy Week, the small town of San Pedro Cutud hosts a festival unlike anything else on earth. It's known as the San Pedro Cutud Lenten Rites. Each year, thousands gather to witness a dramatic and controversial reenactment of the Passion of Christ. But unlike staged plays or processions elsewhere, this ritual involves actual self-flagellation and crucifixions. Devotees, known as penitents, walk barefoot through the streets, whipping their own backs with bamboo flails until they are covered in blood. Some even volunteer to be nailed, yes, nailed to wooden crosses, remaining there in quiet prayer before being carefully taken down. For those who participate, the pain is seen as a form of atonement, a way to express gratitude or seek forgiveness. Though the Catholic Church officially discourages it, the festival continues as a deeply personal act of devotion for many. Now, we travel north to Japan once more, where we encounter one of the country's most peculiar and playful festivals. It's called Kanamara Matsuri, the Festival of the Steel Phallus.
This springtime celebration centers around a very unusual symbol of fertility, the phallus. Gigantic, brightly colored statues of this symbol are paraded through the streets of Kawasaki, while visitors buy candy, souvenirs, and charms shaped in the same form. Though it may seem humorous, the origins of this festival are rooted in ancient beliefs surrounding fertility, protection from disease, and prosperity for couples hoping to have children. Today, it also serves as a fundraiser for sexual health charities. The atmosphere is lighthearted, with laughing crowds, bright costumes, and plenty of festival foods lining the streets. Now, we drift west to Slovenia, where an ancient festival called Kurentovanje takes place each February. Here, participants known as kurents don enormous sheepskin costumes, towering feathered masks, and loud cowbells strapped around their waists. They dance and leap through the streets, shaking their bells loudly to frighten away winter and welcome the coming of spring. The festival is wild and joyous, with parades, music, and plenty of local wine flowing freely. Though the costumes may look intimidating, some say they resemble shaggy monsters, the festival itself is a beloved celebration of community, fertility, and renewal. Now, we take our final stop in Spain, where perhaps the most surreal of all these festivals takes place. It's called Entroido, in the town of Laza, in the Galicia region. This is a carnival of chaos. For several days, the town becomes a playground for outrageous behavior and strange rituals. Men dressed as peliqueiros, characters wearing grotesque, smiling masks and colorful costumes, run through the streets wielding whips and sticks, chasing anyone who crosses their path. Locals toss flour and live ants at each other, hurling bags filled with dirt and vinegar in chaotic street battles. The entire town becomes covered in dust, confetti, and strange scents. Underneath it all, though, is a celebration of freedom. An ancient ritual that lets people release their wildest instincts before the solemn season of Lent begins. It's a sensory overload, but also a deeply rooted tradition. Now, take one last deep breath. Let your imagination gently replay these incredible scenes. Crucifixions in the Philippines, laughter and neon colors in Japan's fertility festival, shaggy, bell-ringing spirits of Slovenia, and Spain's wild carnival of chaos. All across the world, festivals have offered a way for people to release fears, celebrate survival, honor ancestors, and simply connect. Some festivals are strange. Some are beautiful. Some are terrifying. But all of them are deeply human. And as you settle into sleep tonight, perhaps you'll dream of marching with painted faces, dancing beneath bonfires, or tossing flour in a distant village square. Because even the strangest celebrations hold their own quiet magic. Thank you for joining me on this sleepy journey through history's weirdest festivals. May your dreams tonight be just as strange and just as wonderful. Good night,